host. I am Cam Rogers. Hit me up on Twitter at Mr. Rogers99. It is time. My preseason top 10 NFL power rankings. I've got the list. I'll count you down. Let's get to it. Number 10. Here we go. We will start in the AFC South and talk about the team that I am absolutely in love with for this season. And by the way, we'll have the BetDSI Super Bowl 53 odds on your screen as well. And how about that number for Tennessee? Plus 3,800. And for the Titans, there are a few things I want to point to. First of all, they're coming off a nice 9-7 campaign where they made the postseason, taking down the Kansas City Chiefs in that wild card round, all despite having a bad coach in Mike Mularkey. Now, GM John Robinson brings in Mike Vrabel, young, energetic, good defensive mind as the head coach there. They bring in Dion Lewis. They bring in Malcolm Butler, so the secondary looks to be in good shape with Butler and Adoree Jackson and Kevin Byard at safety as well. And the backfield, I think, is going to be really fun to watch as you take a look at some of these Titans' key contributors this season. Henry at running back along with Dion Lewis. I'm excited to see what Marcus Mariota will do this season. Kind of was a down year. And oh, by the way, linebacker Rashaan Evans comes in out of Alabama. Going to be a premier player in this league. He replaces Mr. Avery Williamson, who heads on to the New York Jets. Here is the reason why the Titans will win the AFC South and will be a team to be reckoned with throughout the regular season. They control the line of scrimmage on both sides. All right? Offensive line, Jack Conklin, Taylor Lewan, who is coming off an ACL injury. We'll keep an eye on that. Two really tough tackles, mean guys. They will come at you on the line of scrimmage. Ben Jones, he's a solid center. So the offensive line, the run game, the play-action game down the field. On the defensive side, Benny Logan, Jarrell Casey, Derek Morgan, Wesley Woodyard, Brian Orakpo around the edges. Good front seven. The secondary is even better. If you control the line of scrimmage in the National Football League, you will win games. And I expect that out of the Tennessee Titans. They will win the South. Book it. Now, in terms of Super Bowl prognostications, I don't think they're a Super Bowl contender yet, but at that number from BetDSI, I like it. I'll throw some change down. All right, let's go to number 9 on the list here and talk about the Green Bay Packers. Pretty sure in previous power rankings, I did not have Green Bay inside my top 10. I do now. BetDSI Super Bowl 53 odds plus 1,300. Look, if Aaron Rodgers is healthy and can last 16 games, the Packers are going to be in the playoff conversation. It's just an automatic. Now, speaking of automatic, the tight end position will be much better this year than last year. Martellus Bennett just did not pan out, eventually left the team. Jimmy Graham comes on in. He'll be a big-time piece for that offense. And I'll tell you what, I think Aaron Rodgers will fall in love with Jimmy Graham in the red zone. And I also look forward to seeing how this secondary shakes out. You got Josh Jackson and Jair Alexander via the draft. Very highly touted prospects, especially Josh Jackson. I was really high on him, and I'm kind of biased towards the tall, physical corners, the Carlton Davises of the world, the Mike Hughes of the world, if you will. Tramon Williams, Devon House, they're there as well. Williams brings a good veteran presence. And a little interesting note here about the backfield. Ty Montgomery has been taking a lot of snaps during 2-minute drills and no-huddle situations. So for you fantasy football players out there, I know you're trying to break down the Jamal Williams, Ty Montgomery, and Aaron Jones conundrum, and it certainly is one as we stand. Looks like Montgomery would be a nice little PPR option if need be. Now, for the Green Bay Packers, it comes down to the quarterback. I think Aaron Rodgers will be healthy, and assuming that they should be in the wild card hunt. Wild card. They are not winning the division because another team on this list will. I'll get to that later in the list. But Green Bay checks in at number 9. Now, did an AFC team, did an NFC team. Let's go back to the AFC here and talk about number 8 on the list, the Pittsburgh Steelers. And usually Steelers fans come at me because apparently I have them too low. Sorry, guys. The fact of the matter is the NFC is so dang deep that there are just better teams in that conference. The AFC is a sorry watered-down conference. It's New England, it's Pittsburgh, it's Jacksonville, maybe a Tennessee, and then you got Baltimore. You can never count them out, Joe Flacco and company. So for Pittsburgh, did they change much? Not necessarily. They did bring in John Bostic. Should be an interesting play at linebacker. For now, I think it's Vince Williams who plays middle linebacker, but maybe John Bostic does. We'll see how that depth chart shakes out. Morgan Burnett provides some really good ability at the safety position, so I think the defense is fine. They're waiting on Bud Dupree. Hopefully he can create some sacks for them. TJ Watt obviously is a nice player. But it's all about the killer bees, guys, like you see on your screen. It's Ben, it's Brown, it's Bell, right? And if Bell holds out until the regular season, well, that ain't good. And if this Bell injury, or excuse me, this Brown injury that's going on right now is worse than what we think, also not good. So I think the Ravens are going to be in the AFC North conversation, but this division is still Pittsburgh's. I think they will eventually win it and host a playoff game at Heinz Field. Bet DSI odds, by the way, plus 950. No thank you. Staying away from that number. Rather throw some change down on the Tennessee Titans. All right, so the Steelers got swept by this team here at number 7 on the list. The Jacksonville Jaguars. The defense speaks for itself, particularly the secondary, Jalen Ramsey, A.J. Boyer at corner, Barry Church, Tashawn Gibson at safety. Then you got that defensive front with Malik Jackson and Calais Campbell, Yannick Ngakoue out of Maryland, really coming into his own. Telvin Smith at linebacker, Miles Jack as well, Dante Fowler, that pass rushing specialist. I mean, you look at this defense and you're licking your chops because it's so dang good. Now, meanwhile, at wide receiver, I'm interested to see who rises to the top here. Is it DJ Shark? Is it Marquise Lee? Is it Dante Moncrief? D.D. Westbrook? I don't know. And that's kind of the qualms I have, if you will, with the Jacksonville Jaguars, who emerges at wide receiver to help out Blake Bortles, because there will be times when that run game is shut down. Now, with that said, the run game will be better this year than last year. And first of all, it was pretty good last year, but it was almost in spite of an underachieving offensive line. Now Andrew Norwell is in town, one of the premier guards in the National Football League. Brandon Linder is really good at center, so the interior looks darn solid for Jacksonville. Leonard Fournette, TJ Yeldon, comprised of a pretty good RB duo as well. BetDSI gives us the odds for the AFC South winner, and Jacksonville is the favorite at plus 150. Then you got the Texans at plus 185. How about the Tennessee Titans at plus 275? Then obviously the Colts, big-time long shots. Guys, 275 for the Titans. If you listen to Cam Rogers, you're going to get paid on BetDSI. I say you throw some change down on Tennessee. How much trust do you have in Blake Bortles? That's the real question. That's what it all comes down to. Can he make that throw? And obviously, he was pretty darn close to making the Super Bowl last season. Obviously, that was not the case. New England won that game in the AFC Championship. But the AFC is going to be much better. I mean, it's still going to be watered down, no doubt about it, but I still think there are going to be more teams involved. Denver will be involved. Baltimore will be involved. Oakland will be involved. I've said Oakland is Super Bowl ready. Now, they're just outside of my top 10 because I'd like to see a little more from them throughout the preseason, but they're a breakout team for me. Now, will the Jaguars win the AFC South? Type away. Type A for yes, type B for no. Hit me up. All right, let's go to number 6 on the list. And we're talking about a team with a very fine roster. I'm talking about a balanced roster where it's hard to find any weaknesses. BetDSI Super Bowl odds of plus 1,900. The Atlanta Falcons check in here. And you've got Julio, you've got Calvin Ridley, wide receiver out of Alabama, Mohamed Sanu at wide receiver as well. Rock solid offensive line, Jake Matthews, Andy Levitre at guard, Alex Mack, one of the underrated centers in the NFL, Matt Ryan, former MVP back in 2016. Good running back duo in Devontae Freeman and Tevin Coleman. And oh, by the way, a defense that we don't usually talk about, but Grady Jarrett is really good on the interior. Desmond Trufant is a good cornerback. And Deion Jones at linebacker, like him a lot, coming off a good season. Robert Alford, solid corner. Brian Poole is good too. You're hard-pressed to find a weakness on this Falcons team. Now, couple of caveats here about this squad. A, they're playing in a very difficult division in the NFC South, and I actually do believe there is one team that is better than the Falcons in that division. We'll get there. And B, Steve Sarkisian. He needs to improve in terms of his offensive coordinator abilities, because the Falcons had the same exact cast of characters in 2017 as they did in 2016 when they made the Super Bowl, and for some reason they dropped off that following year when Kyle Shanahan left to become the 49ers head coach. So what gives, Steve? You're going to have to improve upon your play calling a little bit here. So Atlanta at number 6 on my list. All right, we're going through the NFL Power Rankings here on the Cam Rogers Show, sponsored by AutoList. If you're looking for a new or used car out there and you're tired of browsing a million sites, go on to Autolist.com to get that car shopping done in a flash, or download their top-rated mobile app for iPhone or Android today. All right, so we did 10 through 6 in my power rankings. Let's go to number 5 on my list. Quick pause here as I take a sip of water. Back to the AFC. We got the New England Patriots here. Now, the BetDSI favorite to capture the Lombardi Trophy at plus 575. One of my friends actually texted me, dude, how do you have a show when you have New England at 5 and the Saints at 4? I'm about to reason why that is the case. Shout out to Sam Pudding Boy Nielsen. So it's the AFC, it's the Patriots. They will get the number 1 seed. The AFC postseason will go through Foxborough. It's just a fact. It's how it goes. But that said, when you juxtapose New England to the likes of the Saints, maybe the Rams, the Vikings, we'll get there, they're not as good. They're not as talented. And oh, by the way, there were some reports out there throughout the offseason that there is friction within the Patriots leadership, particularly with Robert Kraft, Tom Brady, and Bill Belichick. So looking at New England, there are some changes here on the offensive side. Malcolm Mitchell is no more. Jordan Matthews obviously did not work out. In comes Eric Decker. They also, on the defensive side of things, have Adrian Claiborne, Danny Shelton, Lawrence Guy, Malcolm Brown. That defensive line actually intrigues me. I think they'll be better in terms of pass rushing ability this season. And the secondary is going to be good too. Stephon Gilmore, Jason McCourty at cornerback, really good duo. Devin McCourty at safety too. And Tom Brady's going to be his typical self. Maybe not necessarily win the MVP again, but he's going to be fine. New England's going to win 10, 11, 12, 13 games, get that number 1 seed in the AFC, and perhaps take on my Baltimore Ravens, where Joe Flacco will get it done yet again in Gillette. Stay tuned for that. But yeah, New England at 5. Trust me, the NFC is so dang deep. I could talk about these teams coming up until the day is over because they are just so darn good. So with that, let's get there at number 4. The New Orleans Saints. So I just love the way the Saints are built as a football team. Also love those odds from BetDSI, plus 1,450. The Saints can attack you in a multitude of ways. That is the beauty of this team. All right? They got Michael Thomas, Ted Ginn, Cam Meredith at wide receiver, an elite quarterback in Drew Brees. So they can play the shootout game week in and week out if they really wanted to. But their game plan and their identity at this point in Drew Brees' career is run the rock with Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara and use that big offensive line headlined by Max Unger, Andrews Pete, Teron Armstead coming off the ball and blowing people off the ball. So the defense, by the way, is going to be really good too. Cam Jordan, Okafor, Davenport as your edge rushers and your sack masters, if you will. And the secondary, I love a lot. Patrick Robinson had an elite year at slot corner for the Eagles back in 2017. He's now in town. Ken Crawley is there. Marshawn Lattimore is darn good. And I mentioned Cam Jordan, the ultimate disruptor for the New Orleans Saints on that defensive front. Love the odds. Tough division. NFC South, as you take a look at the odds here, the Saints and the Falcons are tied. So BetDSI has the Falcons and the Saints pretty much the same likelihood to capture the NFC South. I'm putting my money down on the Saints. And I'm staying away from the Bucs, staying away from the Panthers. I just don't know what's going on with Carolina. So many injuries on that offensive line. I'm going to type away and say that the Saints are going to win the NFC South. I'm typing A for yes. Like I said, can play the shootout game, can play the physical, control the line of scrimmage game, and I think that's going to be really valuable for the Saints, especially as we get into the cold weather months, and maybe if the Saints have to travel in the playoffs, they can pack that defense, pack that secondary, pack that run game, and be a factor in the postseason. Dark horse team to make the Super Bowl, by the way. All right, let's talk about the LA Rams. They check in at number 3 in my power rankings. So they won the offseason, but can they put it all together? I think they can. Perhaps the NFL's best secondary, headlined by Marcus Peters, Aqib Talib, Nickel Roby-Coleman, LaMarcus Joyner, John Johnson, the 2017 third-round selection, who had a really good rookie campaign. And the interior of that defensive line is just going to eat the interior of offensive lines, because Aaron Donald and Ndamukong Suh are two of the best at their respective position on the inside there. So really excited to actually watch that defensive front against offensive lines this year. And oh, by the way, the Rams were the #1 scoring offense in 2017, and they pretty much have that same core. No more Sammy Watkins, but that's okay because they have Brandon Cooks now, who I think is probably a better wide receiver as we stand. We're still waiting for Sammy to really pan out in terms of his draft stock when he came out. Robert Woods, pretty explosive. Cooper Kupp, reliable slot man. I think Sean McVay is going to have a really successful season for the LA Rams. They very much will be in the Super Bowl conversation. All right, let's get to number 2, the team I love so much, the Minnesota Vikings. Elite defense. Can't wait to watch this team play. Bet DSI odds of plus 1,000 to capture the Super Bowl. Look, Linval Joseph, Everson Griffin, Sheldon Richardson, Anthony Barr, Eric Kendricks at linebacker, Harrison Smith, Xavier Rhodes, Andrew Sendejo. You tell me a weakness on that defense, because you're going to be hard-pressed to find one. Love the way that it's all shaped up on that side of the ball. And then on the offensive side, Kirk Cousins just shouldn't screw it up. That's all that is really going to be asked of him at the quarterback position. Now, I will note here, offensive line injuries are starting to pile up. Guard Nick Easton is seeking a second opinion on his back and neck, and Pat Elflein and Mike Remmers have been dinged up as well. So watch that front 5 there for Minnesota. But hey, Dalvin Cook is back. I love Stephon Diggs, Adam Thielen, Kendall Wright, an okay wide receiver number 3. And hey, maybe Laquan Treadwell finally shows up. Minnesota, number 2 on the list. Let's get to number 1 now, the defending Super Bowl champions. So the rule of power rankings, folks, put the defending champions at number 1 in your first batch after the draft and the offseason is over. So that's what I'm doing. Now, this does not necessarily mean I will have the Eagles after the week 1 of the regular season power rankings or right before week 1 of the regular season power rankings because, well, you have more data to go off of those 4 preseason games where maybe you can make some better judgments on the Eagles and other teams out there. So let's talk about Philly. Incredible front 7, Derek Barnett, Timmy Jernigan, former Raven, Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, Michael Bennett as well. These guys are going to be fine. I think that front 7 is really good. Jordan Hicks is back and healthy at linebacker. Yeah, no Patrick Robinson in the secondary. I think the Eagles didn't really plan to bring him back. They should be okay with Jordan Mills and Ronald Darby there. And then one of the elite athletic offensive lines in the NFL, particularly that right side, headlined by Jason Kelce at center, Brandon Brooks, who I love watching play guard, and Lane Johnson, probably the best right tackle in the NFL. Then you have Carson Wentz, obviously was in the MVP discussion during the regular season in 2017 until he got hurt. Should be good to go for week 1 in that Thursday opener against the Atlanta Falcons. All right, so Eagles check in at number 1 in my official preseason NFL power rankings, the top 10 version. So let's summarize the list. Philly checks in at number 1. We got Minnesota at 2. The Rams at 3. Saints at 4. Patriots at 5. Then 6 through 10 here. Atlanta, Jacksonville, Pittsburgh, Green Bay, and Tennessee. Couple of snubs here. Left out the 49ers. I think they're in the 11 to 13 range. The Dallas Cowboys, I'm sure people are wondering, probably for me, 13, 14, 15. If you want to know where your team ranks, let me know in comments. I'll be sure to answer for you guys. And I mentioned the Oakland Raiders, too, as a potential breakout team. 11, 12 range, something like that, because I think they are a team that could be reckoned with, but I need to see something from them in the preseason first.